Let me say something that is going to sound almost impossible when you first hear it. There are people in this country who retired with $1 million saved. People who worked hard, who lived below their means for decades, who maxed out their 401k contributions, who did everything the financial magazines and the retirement planning books told them to do. And they still ran out of money, not at 90, not at 88, by age 82, sometimes earlier. And when I tell people this, the first reaction is almost always the same. They shake their head and say, "That cannot be right. $1 million is $1 million. How does that run out in 17 or 18 years of retirement?" And the answer to that question is not simple. It is not one thing. It is a combination of forces that most retirees never see clearly until they are already in the middle of them. Forces that are invisible when you are looking at a retirement account balance and feeling good about the number on the screen. Forces that the financial industry does not always talk about loudly because the conversation is more comfortable when everyone is focused on saving more rather than questioning whether saving more is actually enough. This video is going to pull back the curtain on all of it. We are going to talk about why $1 million is not what it used to be, what specific forces drain retirement savings faster than most people expect, which retirees are most at risk, and most importantly, what you can do right now to make sure your savings actually last as long as you do. Because that is the whole point, not just to save $1 million, but to make it last. I'm Jason, and this is Jason Retires. If you are new here, this channel is all about giving you the honest, unfiltered truth about retirement in America. The stuff that actually matters when you are living on a fixed income and every financial decision carries real consequences. If that is the kind of content you want more of, subscribe right now and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new video. We post every single week, and I promise every video is worth your time. Now let us get into this, because the stakes here could not be higher. First, let us establish some context around the $1 million number, because it is important to understand what that number actually means in today's world versus what it meant in previous generations. For a long time, $1 million was the gold standard of retirement savings. It was the number that financial advisors pointed to, that magazine articles used as the target, that retirement planning calculators were built around. And in a certain era, it genuinely was enough. In the 1990s, $1 million invested conservatively could generate enough income to support a comfortable retirement for most people. But a lot has changed since then, and the $1 million milestone has not kept pace with those changes. Consider inflation first. The purchasing power of $1 million today is dramatically lower than it was 20 or 30 years ago. According to Bureau of Labor Statistics data, the cumulative inflation rate from 1990 to 2024 has eroded the purchasing power of the dollar by more than 60%. That means $1 million today buys roughly what $400,000 bought in 1990. When someone in 1990 retired with $1 million, they had something genuinely substantial. When someone retires today with $1 million, they have something meaningful but significantly less powerful than that same number once represented. Now layer on top of that the reality of healthcare costs in retirement, which we will come back to in detail, and the reality that people are living longer than previous generations did, and the reality that interest rates on safe investments spent many years near historic lows, making conservative income generation much harder, and you start to see why the math does not work the way people expect. $1 million is still a significant achievement. It is still more than most Americans have saved for retirement. According to data from the Federal Reserve's Survey of Consumer Finances, the median retirement savings for Americans between the ages of 55 and 64 is approximately $185,000. So $1 million puts you well ahead of most. But ahead of most does not mean safe from running out. And that distinction is exactly what this video is about. Let us talk about the 4% rule, because it is the most widely cited framework for how to make a retirement portfolio last. And understanding both its value and its limitations is essential for anyone with serious retirement savings. The 4% rule originated from research published in the 1990s by financial planner William Bengen. His analysis suggested that a retiree could withdraw 4% of their initial portfolio balance each year, adjusted for inflation annually, and have a high probability of not running out of money over a 30-year retirement. For a $1 million portfolio, that means withdrawing $40,000 in the first year of retirement. The following year, you adjust that amount for inflation and withdraw slightly more, and so on for 30 years. This rule became enormously influential because it gave people a simple, concrete framework to work with, and at the time it was developed using historical market returns and interest rate environments that existed in earlier decades. It was a reasonable guideline. But subsequent research has raised serious questions about whether the 4% rule is still reliable in today's environment. A widely cited 2021 paper from Morningstar's research team suggested that given current market valuations and expected future returns, a safer withdrawal rate for new retirees might be closer to 3.3%. At 3.3%, a $1 million portfolio generates $33,000 per year rather than $40,000. That is not a small difference. Over a 30-year retirement, that difference in withdrawal rate means a retiree using the old 4% rule could be withdrawing nearly $200,000 more than the updated research suggests is safe. And that excess withdrawal, compounded over years and decades, is one of the primary reasons portfolios run dry. But withdrawal rate is only one piece of the puzzle. Let us go through the other major forces that drain retirement savings faster than most people plan for, because there are several of them, and they often hit simultaneously. The first and arguably most underestimated force is healthcare costs. This is the one that surprises retirees more than almost anything else, and it is the one that has the most potential to completely overwhelm a retirement plan that looked perfectly adequate on paper. According to research from Fidelity Investments, a 65-year-old couple retiring today should expect to spend an average of $315,000 on healthcare costs throughout retirement. That number covers Medicare premiums, out-of-pocket costs, dental, vision, and hearing expenses that Medicare largely does not cover, and other medical costs. And $315,000 is an average. For people with significant chronic conditions, the number can be substantially higher. Now think about what $315,000 does to a $1 million retirement portfolio. If you take that $315,000 and set it aside mentally as dedicated to healthcare costs, you are left with $685,000 to fund everything else in your retirement. Your housing, your food, your transportation, your travel and leisure, your utilities, your insurance, everything. And that remaining amount needs to last potentially 20, 25, or 30 years. The math gets tight very quickly, especially when you add inflation on top of it. Healthcare inflation historically runs higher than general inflation. While the overall consumer price index has averaged roughly 3% annually in recent decades, healthcare costs have consistently risen faster than that. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services projects that national health spending will grow at an average annual rate of approximately 5.6% through 2032. When your costs are growing faster than your portfolio can safely generate income, you are in a race you are always behind in. And most retirement plans do not adequately account for the fact that healthcare costs do not just start high. They accelerate over time as you age and potentially need more care. The second major force is what researchers call the sequence of returns risk. This is one of the most important concepts in retirement finance and one of the least understood by people outside the financial planning world. The idea is this. When you are retired and drawing down your portfolio, the order in which your investment returns occur matters enormously. Not just the average return, but the sequence. A retiree who experiences poor market returns in the early years of retirement and then good returns later is in a dramatically worse position than a retiree who experiences the reverse, even if the average annual return over the entire period is identical. Here is why. When you are in the withdrawal phase of retirement, you are selling assets every year to cover your living expenses. If the market drops significantly in the first few years, and you are still selling assets at those depressed prices to pay your bills, you are selling more shares to generate the same amount of income. Those shares are then gone. They are not there to participate in the recovery when it comes. By the time the market rebounds, your portfolio has been permanently reduced by the combination of the loss and the withdrawals taken during the downturn. This is the mechanism behind sequence of returns risk, and it is the reason that two retirees with identical $1 million portfolios and identical withdrawal rates can have radically different outcomes depending on when, during the market cycle, they happened to retire. Research from the Center for Retirement Research at Boston College and various academic journals consistently shows that retiring into a bear market, or even a period of below average, returns in the first 5 to 8 years of retirement is one of the strongest predictors of portfolio failure. The retiree who retired in 2000, just before the dot-com crash, faced two major bear markets in the first decade of their retirement and saw their portfolio take hits at exactly the time it was most vulnerable. The retiree who retired in 2009, right after the financial crisis, benefited from one of the longest bull markets in history during their early retirement years. Same starting balance, potentially very different outcome 30 years later. The third major force is inflation itself and its effect on purchasing power over a long retirement. We touched on this earlier, but let us look at it more concretely in the context of a retirement that stretches to age 82 or beyond. If you retire at 65 with $40,000 per year in expenses and inflation averages 3% annually, your expenses in today's dollars will have grown to approximately $64,000 per year by the time you are 82. That is a 60% increase in what your daily life costs, even if your actual lifestyle does not change at all. If your portfolio is not growing at a rate that keeps pace with that increase, you are slowly losing ground every single year. And for retirees who invest conservatively, which is completely understandable and often appropriate as you age, the growth rate on their portfolio may not be sufficient to outpace the combination of withdrawals and inflation simultaneously. The fourth major force is what financial planners call unplanned large expenses, and this category covers a wide range of situations that can each take a significant bite out of a retirement portfolio. Long-term care is the most significant. According to data from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, someone turning 65 today has nearly a 70% chance of needing some form of long-term care during their lifetime. The average duration of long-term care need is approximately 3 years, though many people require care for much longer. The cost of that care is substantial. According to Genworth's annual cost of care survey, the median annual cost of a private room in a nursing home in the United States in 2023 was over $108,000. Assisted living runs roughly $60,000 per year on average. Even home health aid services, which are generally less expensive, average around $62,000 annually if you need full-time care. A single long-term care event lasting 3 to 4 years can cost $300,000 to $400,000 or more. For a retiree who has already been drawing down their portfolio for 10 or 15 years and whose balance has dropped from $1 million to perhaps $600,000 or $700,000, a long-term care expense of that magnitude is potentially catastrophic. And Medicare does not cover most long-term care costs. Medicare covers skilled nursing facility care for up to 100 days under very specific conditions related to a hospital stay. But it does not cover custodial care, which is the kind of ongoing assistance with daily activities that most long-term care involves. This is a gap in the retirement safety net that many Americans do not discover until they are in a crisis, and by then, the options are limited. Beyond long-term care, there are other unplanned expenses that regularly derail retirement portfolios. Home repairs and maintenance are a significant one. The conventional wisdom is that homeowners should budget 1 to 2% of their home's value annually for maintenance and repairs. On a $300,000 home, that is $3,000 to $6,000 per year. But in practice, major expenses like roof replacement, HVAC systems, plumbing issues, or foundation problems can run tens of thousands of dollars and often come without warning. Retirees who own their homes outright, which many do, still face these costs, and a string of major home repairs in a single year or two can cause significant damage to a retirement portfolio. Family financial emergencies are another category. Adult children who face job loss, medical crises, or divorce sometimes turn to their parents for financial support, and most parents, understandably, want to help. But gifts or loans to children during retirement come directly out of the portfolio that needs to last the rest of the retiree's life. According to a survey from Merrill Lynch and AgeWave, approximately 79% of parents provide some form of financial support to their adult children. For retirees, that support can be a meaningful drain on a portfolio that was sized assuming it would only need to support the retirees themselves. The fifth major force is taxes in retirement, which we have touched on in previous videos, but deserves specific attention here in the context of portfolio longevity. Many retirees are surprised to discover how much of their retirement income is subject to federal and sometimes state income taxes. Required minimum distributions from traditional IRAs and 401ks are taxed as ordinary income. Up to 85% of Social Security benefits can be taxable if combined income exceeds certain thresholds. Capital gains from investment accounts, interest income, and dividend income all have their own tax implications. When you add all of this up, a retiree who believed they were withdrawing $40,000 per year from their portfolio to cover expenses may actually need to withdraw $50,000 or $55,000 per year to end up with $40,000 after taxes. That gap between gross withdrawal and net spendable income is something that many retirement plans underestimate, and it means the portfolio is being depleted faster than the plan projected. Now let us talk about what you can do about all of this, because the purpose of understanding these forces is not to feel hopeless, but to feel empowered to plan around them. The first and most fundamental shift is to move from thinking about a retirement number to thinking about retirement income. The goal is not to accumulate a certain balance. The goal is to generate reliable income that covers your expenses for as long as you live. These are related but different objectives, and the distinction matters enormously. A retirement portfolio is a means to an end, not the end itself. When you focus on income rather than balance, you start asking better questions. How much guaranteed income do I have from Social Security and any pensions? How much do I need from my portfolio to cover the gap between that guaranteed income and my expenses? How do I structure my investments and withdrawals to generate that income reliably, even through market downturns? Social Security optimization is one of the most powerful levers available for increasing guaranteed lifetime income. As we have discussed in previous videos, delaying Social Security claiming from 62 to 70 increases the monthly benefit by approximately 76%. For a retiree who would have received $2,000 per month at 62, delaying to 70 means receiving approximately $3,500 per month instead. That additional $1,500 per month is guaranteed, inflation adjusted, and lasts for life. It significantly reduces the amount that needs to come from the portfolio each year, which directly reduces the risk of running out. The second strategy is to build what planners call a bucket approach or a segmented income strategy. The idea is to divide your portfolio into different segments based on time horizon. A short-term bucket might hold 1 to 3 years of living expenses in cash or very stable, low-risk assets. This bucket ensures you can cover near-term expenses without selling long-term investments during a downturn. A medium-term bucket might hold bonds and other moderate-risk assets that can be drawn on over a 3 to 10-year horizon. A long-term bucket holds growth-oriented investments like stocks that are given time to grow without being touched during market volatility. This structure directly addresses sequence of returns risk by ensuring that you are never forced to sell your growth assets at a loss to cover short-term expenses. The third strategy is to address healthcare costs proactively rather than reactively. This means understanding your Medicare options thoroughly, considering a Medicare supplement plan or Medigap policy to cap out-of-pocket medical costs, and seriously evaluating long-term care insurance or hybrid life insurance products that include long-term care riders. Long-term care insurance premiums are lower and easier to qualify for when you purchase coverage in your late 50s or early 60s compared to waiting until your late 60s or 70s. The protection it provides can be the difference between a manageable healthcare expense and a catastrophic one. The fourth strategy is to be thoughtful and deliberate about flexible spending in retirement. Research from the Journal of Financial Planning and other academic sources consistently shows that retirees do not actually spend at a constant inflation-adjusted rate throughout retirement. Spending tends to be higher in the early active years, then decreases somewhat in the middle years, then may increase again in the final years due to healthcare costs. Understanding this natural spending curve and adjusting your withdrawal strategy accordingly, rather than mechanically applying a fixed percentage withdrawal every year, regardless of circumstances, can extend portfolio life significantly. If the market has a bad year, cutting discretionary spending modestly for a year or two can make a substantial difference in long-term portfolio survival. The fifth strategy is to revisit your plan regularly and be willing to make adjustments. A retirement plan is not a document you create at 65 and then follow unchanged for 20 years. It needs to be reviewed annually in light of actual spending, actual portfolio performance, actual health changes, and changes in the tax and Medicare landscapes. Retirees who review their plan regularly and make small adjustments along the way, spending a little less when markets are down, adjusting their tax strategy when legislation changes, revisiting their investment allocation as they age, dramatically outperform those who set a plan and never look at it again. I also want to say something directly to anyone watching this who has already retired and is looking at their balance and feeling worried. If your portfolio has declined more than you expected, or if you are spending more than you planned, or if you are looking at the numbers and wondering whether you are going to make it, please do not sit with that anxiety alone. There are resources available. Fee-only financial planners, nonprofit credit counseling organizations, and state health insurance assistance programs for Medicare-related questions can all provide guidance. Many of these resources are low cost or free. The worst thing you can do is ignore the numbers because looking at them feels scary. The second worst thing is to make dramatic changes in a panic without getting professional input. The right answer is to look clearly, get help understanding what you see, and make informed adjustments. One final thought. The narrative that $1 million guarantees a comfortable retirement is one that the financial industry has allowed to persist for a long time because it is motivating. It gives people a target. It keeps them saving. And saving is genuinely important. But the full truth is more nuanced. $1 million is a strong foundation, but it is not a guarantee. The outcome depends enormously on when you retire, how you invest, how you withdraw, how healthy you are, how long you live, how inflation behaves, and dozens of other factors. The people who retire successfully are not necessarily the ones who saved the most. They are the ones who understood all of these forces and planned deliberately around each one of them. That is what this channel is here to help you do. And that is why I want to hear from you right now. Were any of these factors something you had not fully thought about before watching this video? Which one surprised you the most? Was it healthcare costs, sequence of returns risk, taxes, long-term care, or something else entirely? Leave a comment below and tell me honestly where your thinking was before this video and where it is now. I read every single comment, and your responses genuinely shape the content I create. If this video gave you something valuable, share it with someone who needs to hear it. A friend who just retired, a sibling who is getting close, a parent who thinks their savings are fine and has never run the detailed numbers. You might be planting a seed that leads to a very important conversation and a much better financial outcome for someone you love. And if you are not yet subscribed to Jason Retires, subscribe right now. Every week we go deep on the real challenges of retirement in America with honesty, clarity, and a genuine commitment to helping you protect what you have worked so hard to build. Thank you for watching all the way through. I will see you in the next one.